Another feature that you're going to want to familiarize yourself with is the options file within your MySQL Workbench. And this is essentially the configuration file for your MySQL servers and their databases. So from within our instance here, we're going to select the options file right here underneath instance. Now, some of these values are set during the installation, but of course you can always go back and change those values anytime that you feel like it. And in essence, what you're doing is just reconfiguring the way the server behaves. Now, if we just have a quick look here, you see there are a number of tabs, and on any one individual tab, of course, there are literally dozens and dozens of entries. So there's a lot more than what we can cover in a few minutes here. So you will have to do a little bit of searching around, perhaps through the help system or just online in community forums. But there are some common ones that you might want to set right from the get-go, if you will. So we'll hit some of the main ones. So on the General tab here, what you can find here is, of course, the installation directories. Now, this was something that was set during the install of MySQL itself. So I can set the paths and or change those paths anytime right here. So I can just go in and hit the browse option there and specify a different location. Also within here, you'll find options for caching. Okay. Right there under the memory usage, I can specify different values for my memory cache values, whatever I feel is appropriate there as well. And if you have replication set up in your environment, or if you're just looking to set up replication, then you do need to set this option right here, the server ID. And note that it does tell us here, uniquely identifies the server instance in the community of a replication partner. So it must be set to a value other than 0 to enable replication. So 0 in essence means that this system is not replicating. So you can enable that and set its sequence in the replication environment. On the logging tab, what we'll find in here are options for long-running queries. So right there at the very top, you see long-running query time is set to 10 seconds. So in other words, any query that takes longer than 10 seconds will be logged. Now, this doesn't do anything to stop the query or anything along those lines, but it does go to the log files. And we'll see the log files a little bit later on, but you can see right here, there's server logs. And something like that means that it will go to the server logs. So I can specify which file it is as well. Anything can be set there that I might want. Under networking, these days SSL is heavily used in a lot of environments. So if you've got certificate services in place, then I can specify things like my certificate authority, the certification path, the cipher strength, things like that with respect to securing the databases by using SSL. On the advanced tab, common option here is your transaction isolation levels. Read uncommitted, for example, makes sure that that transactions that aren't even yet committed to the database can actually be read. Now, it's up to you, whatever you feel is appropriate here, but I can just select the transaction isolation level, and you see that there are 4 options that you can set. And as you go up this list, what you're doing is you're making sure that the transactions, in fact, are committed before they can be read, and or what other transactions might be able to access a transaction that's currently in the log just waiting to be committed. So again, you might need to look up what these values are all about, but that's where you can just set those levels to try to make sure that transactions are isolated from each other. On the security tab, very common option here, what we can do is set a read-only value. Read-only makes all non-temporary tables read-only so that changes cannot be made. This is often done during maintenance modes, things like that. I can also set password validation. I can create, in essence, a password policy here for the length and number of characters, the file that stores a dictionary path of standard words that are used in passwords that I want to make sure aren't used when people create passwords, the number of digit characters required, just standard options for any kind of a policy with respect to passwords can be defined in there. And then finally, under performance, we'll see some options here for the query cache size. So again, very common value that you might want to increase so that you get more hits of records coming from your query as opposed to having to be pulled from disk. So again, there's a lot of options in here, and if you do want to become familiar with all of them, it certainly is up to you to go through and search up these options and find out what they're all about. But there's, obviously a lot of content here to absorb. So just go in every so often, search for a particular value. You see you can locate options here as well. If you're not sure which tab it's under, I can just type in something that I'm looking for here, such as cache. Now, there's multiple instances of the word cache, but this will at least find some of them. So there, for example, is their definition cache. So it doesn't take you straight to the first option in all cases, but it does help you narrow it down a little bit. But a little bit of research, a little bit of familiarity, and you can very effectively fine-tune the configuration of your servers.